Hello, eighth graders. I hope that you guys have had a beautiful week. This week, as we continue in the Gospel of Matthew, I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about how Matthew shows that Jesus is fulfilling everything in the Old Testament. Now, we talked about how Matthew is going to relate everything to say that Jesus is the one who fulfills all of the New Testament prophecies. Right? That the Messiah was going to come and that Jesus is this Messiah. But today, what I wanted to talk about is a little bit how Matthew portrays um, Jesus as the new Moses. In other words, that he fulfills all of the law. And to start us off, I have a bit of a quote. This comes from the Gospel of Matthew, which of course we're studying. So let's take a look. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have come not to abolish, but to fulfill. Amen, I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not the smallest letter or the smallest part of a letter will pass from the law until all things have taken place. Therefore, whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do so will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever obeys and teaches these commandments will be called greatest in the kingdom of heaven. I tell you, unless your righteousness surpasses that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will not enter into the kingdom of heaven. So I have come not to abolish the law. I have come to fulfill the law. In other words, Jesus is saying that everything that was said before still holds. But then at the same time, there are some things that he changes. Some things he gets rid of completely. So as he's doing this, I don't want you to mistake and think that every single thing that's in the Old Testament, Jesus says is going to be the way it's going to be in the future, because he doesn't. In fact, the way he says this is quite odd. For example, you have heard it said to your ancestors, you shall not kill, and whoever kills will be liable to judgment. But I say to you, whoever is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. And whoever says to his brother, Raka, means fool or silly person, will be answerable to Sanhedrin. And whoever says, you fool, will be liable to the fiery Gehenna. Therefore, if you bring your gift to the altar and then recall that your brother has anything against you, leave your gift there at the altar. Go first and be reconciled with your brother, and then come and offer your gift. Let's think about this for a minute. Jesus says, you have heard it said to your ancestors, you shall not kill. Wait a minute. Who said that? Who said you shall not kill? Well, that comes from the Ten Commandments. That's what God said to Moses, right? Like, this is the highest possible authority that you could have in the whole world, is God speaking, right? And so Jesus says, look at this. You have heard it said to your ancestors, you shall not kill, and whoever kills will be liable to judgment. But I say to you, whoever is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. Wait a minute. Did Jesus just say that he was more important than God? You've heard it said to your ancestors. Who said that? God said that. And Jesus says, but I say. This only makes sense if Jesus himself is God speaking and clarifying and making things more understandable. So you can see right off the bat that Matthew is showing us a Jesus who sees himself as the Son of God, who sees himself absolutely as God made man on earth, and who is speaking God's word, right? He's speaking it with the same authority that God is speaking. You have heard it said, but I say to you. He says it again. You have heard it said, you shall not commit adultery. Well, who said that? God said that. To who? To Moses. But I say to you, everyone who looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart. It was also said, whoever divorces his wife must give her a bill of divorce. But I say to you, over and over again, you've heard it said, but I say to you. In other words, Jesus, as God, is clarifying, is making sure that everything comes very, very clear, that it's not just about killing, that it's about the whole idea of killing, that the whole mindset of killing. Let me put it this way. Have you ever had somebody hurt you so bad that in your mind you thought of doing harm to that person? You imagine maybe something would happen to them? I have. I'm embarrassed to say. There have been times when somebody's insulted me or hurt my feelings in ways that were really strong. And in my anger and in my frustration, in my head, I imagined terrible things. Jesus is telling us that's like killing somebody, even thinking that stuff. He says it's not just about our actions, but it's about our thoughts and our heart too. That our actions are important. He's not saying he's not saying, as long as you have a clean heart, kill anybody you want. No. Our actions he's not taking the law away, but he's fulfilling it. He's showing it not just in its base form, but in everything that can be added to it, the wholeness of it, all of the goodness and truth that can be mustered. He musters it all together, right? So he's fulfilling the law. So let's think about this. One of the ways we see Matthew present Jesus as the new Moses, as in he's giving us the new law. Now it's not different from the old law. It's clearer and more present than the old law. It's fulfilled in Jesus. For example, just like Moses, Jesus has an attempt on his life by a ruler bent on preserving his own kingdom, the Pharaoh. In the case of Moses, Herod and Pharaoh in the case of Moses, and Herod in the case of Jesus. Remember, Herod slaughters all of the infant boys in Bethlehem's vicinity, just like Pharaoh attempted to kill all the Hebrew boys back in Egypt. And just like Moses fled from Pharaoh, Jesus too was forced to flee from Pharaoh. And where? In Egypt, right? So both Moses and Jesus flee from the ruler as to Egypt, right? So also, just like you might remember, we were talking about the fasting, right? Jesus fasted for 40 days and 40 nights before teaching the new law of God. And where did he teach it? On a mountain. And Moses did the same thing. He went out for 40 days and 40 nights and came back and taught on the mountain, right? Just as Moses went to Mount Sinai to receive the Decalogue, the Ten Commandments, Jesus ascends a mountain to bring forth a new law. Just as Moses gives the 10 Commandments, Jesus presents his disciples with 10 Beatitudes, right? So we see that this over and over and over again, that Jesus in Matthew is seen as the new Moses, that he somehow is the new person who's going to bring all of the truth of God into his people. All right, so let's take a close look at some of this. What I want you to notice is as we go through this, you're going to see that Jesus lists something that was said in the Old Testament, and then he's going to turn it and make it more real. He's going to fulfill it in the New Testament. So we've already looked at this first one. You've heard it said to your ancestors, you shall not kill. But I say, if you're even angry with your brother, you're liable to judgment. In other words, in our thoughts, if we are harboring murderous thoughts or thoughts that are meant to harm other people, sometimes it's not that we imagine killing people, right? But whenever we imagine harm on someone, that's a kind of killing. whenever we imagine, geez, I hope that person gets what they deserve, that's a kind of killing, right? Is that something you'd wish for yourself? Do you think, look in the mirror and say, I hope I get what I deserve? No, we don't. No, when we look at ourselves, we want ourselves to get all the good things, right? We want ourselves to get all of the joy and happiness, even if we're not all that, even if we make mistakes, even if we even if we sin and do bad things, we still want the good for ourselves. We're called to be that same way towards everybody. Everybody. Now look, you're going to have people who are going to insult you and hurt you. That's going to happen. I'm sorry, I wish it didn't, but it is going to happen. And how we respond to that makes all the difference in the world. Jesus is calling us to respond with the same way that we would respond to ourselves. Disappointment? I could be disappointed in me. Maybe even frustration. I can be frustrated with myself. I can even be angry at things that I've done. But I always hope that for myself, that things turn out okay. I always have the highest hopes for myself. Is that what I have for others when they do something wrong? When they mistake, when they hurt me? Do I always will their good the same way I will my own good? That's what we're called to be. Even in the midst of the hard stuff, we're called to be always that goodness. You have heard it said, you shall not commit adultery, but I say to you, everyone who looks at a woman with lust and has already committed adultery with her in his heart. We're called to have pure relations with everyone around us. We're called to treat everyone with dignity and respect, right? We're called to treat everyone around us as if they were our brothers and sisters, not as if they're something to be used, not as toys or playthings or objects. That people are people with mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers. That every single person in this world has human dignity, has value. And so what we're called to do is to be able to always remember that when we're looking at another person. There might be somebody that I don't know, right? And I might look at that person and say, wow, that person is beautiful. That's wonderful and good, because people are indeed very beautiful. But I should always remember that that's a person with hopes and dreams, a person with all of the beauty that God has given them. And I should never imagine them as being anything less. Again, you have heard it said to your ancestors, do not take a false oath, but make good to the Lord all that you vow. In other words, whenever you make a promise, keep it, no matter what. But I say to you, do not swear at all, not by heaven because it's God's throne, nor by earth for it's his footstool, nor by Jerusalem for it is the city of the great king. In other words, and Jesus will say this later, let your yes mean yes, and let your no mean no. In other words, just speak truthfully all the time. All the time. Just say what's right and true and good all the time. You shouldn't have to be the kind of person who needs to make promises about what you say. You should be the kind of person who always has honor, who always says what is right and true and good all the time. Not just when you're swearing. Like, hey, I can say anything I want. It's not like they're just words, But it's not like I'm breaking a promise. Jesus says, no, every word that comes out of your mouth should be like a promise. Everything that comes out of your mouth should be true and right and good. You have heard it said, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, offer no resistance to one who is evil. When someone strikes you on your right cheek, turn your left to them as well. If someone wants to go to court with you over your tunic, hand over your cloak as well. Should anyone press you into service for a mile, go with him for 2 miles. Give to the one who asks of you, and do not turn your back on one who wants to borrow. You've heard it said, revenge should be constrained to whatever somebody did to you. Somebody hits you, you can hit them back. That's what you can, but you can't kill them or anything, right? That's what the Old Testament said. You can only do what someone did to you. You can't go further than that. But Jesus says, let go of that entirely. Have no retaliation. Seek no revenge. Let it go completely. This is hard to take. I don't know about you, but somebody hurts me or hurts my family, I get very upset. And I can't help but want to make sure that person gets what's coming to them. But Jesus calls us to not be like that. Jesus calls us to be the kind of people who forgive right away in the moment and let it go. When somebody does something wrong to us, we're called to allow that thing to be. That doesn't mean that I should put myself in positions that I'm going to get hurt. But it does mean that when I am hurt, that I shouldn't let that rule my life. Quite the opposite. I should let it go, forgive them, and let it be. Not only that, but I shouldn't affect me at all when somebody hurts me, right? That I should, if somebody hits me, so what? Somebody hurts my feelings, so what? I've hurt people's feelings. I have no right to be upset. I should let it go. You have heard it said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Oh, this one's hard. You don't have an enemy unless there's something really wrong. If you have an enemy, if you have someone in your life that you are really, truly at odds with, that you're truly and honestly against, something serious had to happen. Now, when we look at ancient times, these kinds of things could be very, very terrible things. We're looking at Jesus' time. You could have enemies because they killed someone in your family, or because they stole something really, really important to your family. Or if you have an enemy, chances are they were for good reasons. But Jesus tells us to love our enemies, to love the very people who hurt us most. Whew, that's hard. That's really hard. That's one of the hardest things that we can do. We want to, it's one thing to forgive, it's one thing to walk away, but it's a totally different thing to love them. And yet, is that not what Jesus does on the cross? Aren't we all his enemies when our own sin puts him there? And yet, he prays for us all and loves us all. And we're called to be just like that, to be children of our Heavenly Father, to be just like Jesus, to love even those who hate you, to love even when those who hurt you, to love even in the hardest and most terrible situations, always, in every case, and in every place, to try to love. Let me see what he says here. For if you love those who love you, what good is that? Don't the tax collectors do the same? And if you greet your brothers and friends only, what's unusual about that? Even the pagans do the same. It's true. Even bad people have friends. Even people who are really, really, really bad have friends and are nice to their friends. There's no great heroism in being nice to your friends. Anybody can do that. Everybody does that. There's no great heroism in being nice to your family. You're supposed to be nice to your family. Everybody's nice to their family. How do we become heroes? By being kind and loving to those who are not. Those of whom we have no relationship, or even those with whom we have a bad relationship. Then loving them That's real love. That's taking love further. I'm not going to lie, that's not easy. That's hard. That's really hard. But that's what the Lord calls us to do, is to be that love in the world. Love that's so strong that no hatred can stop it. Love that's so strong that no pain can stop it. Love that's so strong that no violence can stop it. Love that's so strong that no theft, no hurt, no anything can stop it. Love that loves no matter what, all the time, every day, without fail. This is the fulfillment of God's law. In the end, fulfillment of God's law is bringing a law of true, actual love to yourself and to the whole world. Being love in the world. That's what God calls us to. And that is not easy. That is really, really hard. But it's the most important and valuable and magical thing that you can do in your life, is to turn yourself into someone who loves every single human person that you meet, every one of them, regardless of their color, regardless of their attitude, regardless of whether or not they smell good, regardless of everything. If you can love everyone, then you're being like Jesus. May God bless you this week. I hope that you have a beautiful week, and I look forward to seeing you next. Take care.